In 1978, 918 people died in a jungle settlement in Guyana. Most of them drank poison voluntarily. They were not stupid. They were not mentally ill. Many of them were educated, idealistic, and deeply committed to making the world a better place. They were members of People's Temple. And what happened to them is one of the most documented examples of psychological control ever recorded. Today we're going to look at exactly how cults do what they do. Not because cults are rare curiosities, but because the psychological mechanisms they use are the same ones present in controlling relationships, high-pressure organizations, and manipulative groups of every kind. Once you understand how this works, you'll see it in places you never expected. What is a cult, actually? The word cult gets used loosely, often to describe any group with unusual beliefs. But psychologists who study coercive control use a more specific definition. A cult is any group that uses systematic psychological manipulation to maintain control over its members, suppress critical thinking, and exploit members for the benefit of the leadership. The beliefs themselves, religious, political, self-help, or otherwise, are almost secondary. What defines a cult is the mechanism of control, not the content of the ideology. And those mechanisms are remarkably consistent across groups that have nothing else in common. Mechanism 1. Love bombing. The entry point for almost every cult is not fear, it's warmth. New members are showered with attention, affirmation, and belonging. They are made to feel special, chosen, deeply understood. For people who are going through a difficult period, loneliness, grief, a major life transition, this can feel like exactly what they've been missing. This is deliberate. Researchers call it love bombing, and it creates a powerful emotional debt. The new member feels genuinely cared for. They attribute that feeling to the group, and they become motivated, often unconsciously, to maintain access to that feeling. By the time the warmth becomes conditional, the person is already inside. Mechanism 2. Us versus them. Once a person is inside the group, the psychological boundary between the group and the outside world begins to sharpen. Outsiders, family, old friends, former colleagues, are reframed as threats. They don't understand. They're spiritually lost. They're part of the system the group exists to oppose. Their concerns about the group are reframed as evidence of their own corruption or ignorance. This does two things simultaneously. It elevates the member's sense of identity and purpose. They are part of something important, something that outsiders simply can't perceive, and it systematically dismantles the external relationships that might offer a competing perspective. The result is that the group becomes the primary social reality for its members. Leaving doesn't just mean leaving an organization. It means losing your entire world. Mechanism 3. Thought-stopping techniques. One of the most consistent features of cultic groups is what psychologists call thought-stopping. Systematic methods for preventing members from engaging in critical thinking about the group itself. These techniques vary in form but share a function. In some groups, members are taught to pray, chant, or repeat mantras whenever doubts arise. In others, doubt itself is reframed as spiritually dangerous, a sign of weakness, corruption, or outside influence. The critical insight here is that these techniques are not just socially enforced. They become internalized. Members apply them to themselves. They learn to shut down their own critical faculties before the doubt can fully form. This is not weakness. This is a predictable response to systematic conditioning. The human mind is extraordinarily adaptive, and what it adapts to in a cultic environment is the suppression of certain kinds of thought. Mechanism 4. Confession and surveillance. Many cultic groups have formal or informal systems of confession. Members are encouraged or required to share their doubts, transgressions, and private thoughts with leadership or with the group. On the surface, this looks like community, like vulnerability, like trust. In practice, it functions as surveillance. The information shared in confession can be used to identify members who are wavering, to apply targeted pressure, and to prevent defection. It also reinforces the sense that the group knows everything, that there is no private space in which doubt can safely develop. Combined with the thought-stopping mechanisms already in place, this creates an environment in which not only behavior, but inner life is subject to group control. Mechanism 5. Escalating commitment. Psychologists have documented a phenomenon called the sunk cost fallacy, the tendency to continue investing in something because of what we've already put in, rather than because of what we stand to gain. Cult leaders understand this intuitively. Members are asked to make increasingly significant sacrifices: time, money, relationships, career. Each sacrifice is framed as a spiritual or ideological commitment, proof of dedication, evidence of genuine belief. And each sacrifice makes the next one easier to justify, because the alternative is to admit that everything given so far was given for nothing. This is why people stay in groups that are clearly causing them harm. It's not stupidity, it's the compounding weight of everything they've already sacrificed. Why ordinary people join? The final and perhaps most important point is this: the people who join cults are not a specific type. Research consistently shows that cult members are drawn from across the full spectrum of education, intelligence, and mental health. The specific vulnerabilities that cult recruiters look for are not rare. They are universal. Going through a difficult transition, searching for meaning or community, wanting to be part of something larger than yourself. At one point or another, most people experience all of these things. The difference between someone who joins a cult and someone who doesn't is usually not intelligence or strength of character. It's often simply whether a skilled recruiter found them at the right moment. Understanding this, really understanding it, is the beginning of genuine protection. Not because knowing makes you immune, but because it removes the arrogance that makes people think they are. The same mechanisms we've talked about today show up in controlling relationships, in high-pressure workplaces, in political movements, in online communities. They don't require a compound in the jungle. They require a person who understands how psychological need works and is willing to exploit it. Subscribe for more videos on the psychology of control, influence, and how to protect your mind. I'll see you next week.